I'm going to start, but they don't do me right. I need my makeup. I need my sound done. I need where my head at. I tell you what, this is Happy Memorial Day weekend, and we salute all the veterans that fought. And I salute you, the men and the women, because I wasn't going to fight no war. You know why? Because I wasn't leaving my mama for nobody's war. We had enough war going on in the neighborhood. Let alone go somewhere else there. But anyhow, this is going to be fun weekend. If this is your first time joining us, we welcome you. You won't forget it. And as things go by, if you forget, go back and you can review this on YouTube as well as Facebook there, over there. So we are excited and ready to jump in with our facilitator, counselor, emasculator, and all those things. Dr. Tonya she's a book writer, author, and she's available every fourth Sunday, 3:30 to 4:30, Ratchet here on this Ratchet here station. Same bad time, same bad places. They say, take it away, sister.
Well, thank you, my brother Barry. We certainly enjoy having you here with us. We miss you when you are not here. So, thank you so much for your introduction and welcome to our monthly Grief Symposium. I see you guys coming in on Facebook. I'm not able to see you on YouTube, but our project manager, our producer, Cedric, will certainly let me know about the comments that you guys share. So again, we're excited. I see you, Miss Tonya. Good to see you on Facebook. Welcome to our monthly Grief Symposium. And as Mr. Barry stated, this is a service that we've been doing for over a decade now. And I believe the next time that we will be in person will be July. So I look forward to seeing you guys in person July. So we always want to welcome you. Those of you who are here for the very first time, this is your first time logging into a live celebration, would you just put a 1 in the comment section? A 1 in the comment section so that we can absolutely recognize you. Hey, Mr. Jimmy, good to see you. Good to see you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. So we want you to put a 1 in the comment section so that we can recognize you and appreciate you for being here with us. And we always love the opportunity to be able to share. If you're on Facebook, I know that you have the opportunity to share. So if you don't mind, as you feel comfortable, would you share this broadcast so that people can hop on and let them know that we're on live? Would you share the broadcast and actually also tag some people? Tag some people that you know who are experiencing grief. They could use this grief support because it's free. It's not costing you anything but time. Not costing you anything but time. So the handout is available. The handout is available. Jimmy, you put a 1 in there. This is not your first time. Jimmy, you've been with us, right? On Facebook. So the handout is available. If you want to follow along, you can look in the link where the description of this video is. Wherever the description is under this video, you can find it, click it, and you can have the handout for your personal reference. So I always want to check in. You know, those of you who have been here before, I always want to check in before we move into the handout. I always want to find out, what have you been doing to take care of yourself since I saw you guys last? Jimmy, I know you laugh and see. It's frequent flyer. Come on, Sophia knows what to put in there. Jimmy, you are a FF. That means you've been here before. Hey, Sophia, good to see you guys. So drop in the chat. I'm looking on Facebook. I'm looking. Cedric's going to tell me about your comments on YouTube. What have you guys done to take care of yourselves since I saw you last? For those who may be here for the first time, I always ask that at the top of our session. I always want to check in and ask, how you doing? And what have you done to take care of yourself? My reason for that, Jimmy says, senior moment. Listen, I understand. I understand. I have those from time to time. I always want to ask you, what have you done to take care of yourself? Because you are the captain of your ship. What do I mean? You must be the first person to say, I'm going to take care of myself in this grief space that you're in. Okay? Because if you don't take care of yourself, who will? So I always want to lead by example. For me, I'm still on the health journey. And I'll be on that, I believe, for the rest of my life because, again, this is a lifestyle we're creating. I'm not asking you guys just to take care of yourself because you're in grief. I'm asking you to take care of yourself because you're in grief, and I want you to have a healthy lifestyle. So for me, I have found a new PCP because the one I had was not sensitive to my needs. Has anybody ever had a PCP, a doctor who was just not sensitive? Our healthcare in the nation that we live in, not calling any names, but our healthcare system can be very frustrating sometimes. I have been told by doctors themselves that they're only given 15 minutes per patient. And I pay this large amount of a premium every month, and all you can give me is 15 minutes. So, yeah, I changed PCPs because I want to find somebody who, again, is attentive to my needs. So that's something I'm looking forward to, talking to this new doctor, getting new blood work done. I'm looking forward to exercising more. Now, why am I going to exercise some more? It's because y'all see my hair. I got a new hairdo. Woo, Jesus. Listen, I went and bought me some hair, Jimmy. I went and bought it. So I'm looking forward to exercising so I won't sweat as bad. I won't sweat as bad. So thank you so much for tagging. I appreciate you. I see you guys tagging. Would you say they just want us to throw medication your way? You're exactly right. You're exactly right when it comes to our healthcare system. So you have to be an advocate for yourself, right? You have to be an advocate for yourself. So yes, going to the doctor, getting my blood work, getting ready to work out because I got this new hair and all that kind of stuff. So what are you guys doing? I don't see you putting it in the chat. What are you doing to take care of yourself? Since I saw you last month, we were virtual. What have you done to take care of yourself? It is essential that you do that. And the reason I'm really taking a little bit more time here now, thank you, Jimmy, is because if you've been watching the news, we have an Ebola breakout. Ebola, I think it's over in Africa right now. They talk about it heading this way. Whatever goes on, listen, people, we need to build up our immune system. Build up your immune system before whatever comes, before whatever it hits, your system will be ready. So you want to take whatever it is you need to take. You need to take zinc. Listen, I'm not a doctor. I'm just saying, do your own research, figure out what you need to take. But you need to start building up your immune system now. How does that apply to grief? Because grief breaks down your immune system because of stress. Grief will break down your immune system because of stress. Okay? So that's why you need to definitely pay attention to building that up. So you can continue to put it in the chat as we move along. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing from our outline. Doug says, my PCP is very, very attentive to my needs. So good. I am so happy for you, Doug. That means you are a blessed person. You really, really are very, very attentive to your needs. I'm excited for you in that space. I pray that I get to experience that. Victoria says, just starting the self-care journey, and it's kind of hard because I'm not a selfish person. So I feel like I am being selfish in a way. Thank you for your transparency, Victoria, and thank you for sharing that because a lot of us feel that way. So you do have to learn how to take care of yourself. You really do, and it is not selfish in doing so. It's called if you are a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, I call it stewardship. That's what he taught me at the top of this year. The Lord said, stewardship is the word, stewardship and collaboration. I'm in collaboration with a lot of people this year, but stewardship, he said, you must be a better steward over your life. That's how God talks to me. He gets a little aggressive sometimes. He said, you need to be a better steward. Don't ask me for money. Don't ask me for this until you steward what I have given you well. And I have discovered that many of us have not stewarded our bodies well. We put anything in it. We eat any kind of food. Okay. We don't rest it. We don't hydrate it. And what do I mean by that? As you get older, what have I learned? Talking about a senior moment, Jimmy. As you get older, you need to drink water with electrolytes. And when you don't, you can find yourself experiencing a urinary tract infection and all of those kinds of things. Okay. So you need to hydrate and do all of these things. So Our subject today is talking about the silent wait. The silent wait. When we say wait, WEIGHT, we're going to be talking about understanding the connection between grief and mental health. Grief and mental health. So, most of you may be aware that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And it is. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. And every Sunday at our church, I'm over the congregational care ministry, and the mental health ministry is a part of that. Listen, since the pandemic came, the pandemic brought great awareness to us as the people. It brought great awareness. It showed us deficits that were in our systems. The pandemic came and it forced us to realize that we need to allow ourselves to grieve. Absolutely. Because so many people, millions of people died, and it forced us to deal with grief in a massive way. There was another deficit that the pandemic caused us to see, several, of course, in our political system. We realized that was during the George Floyd experience. I had the opportunity to meet the sister. I spoke on a panel with her this past Thursday, especially those of you who are in the Fort Worth area. Do y'all remember a Tatiana Jefferson? She was a young lady who was killed by Fort Worth PD in her own house. She was killed in her own house. So I had the opportunity to meet with her sister, and just share a time on a panel. But it was during that time when she got killed. We learned, if we didn't already know, there's some deficits and some unfairness in our political system, our justice system, our school systems. Our children are not learning, or were not learning at the level that we thought they were. Because when we were in the pandemic, again, the doors were closed to the school building, but the children still had to learn. And who became the teacher? The parent. And a lot of times it was a parent who did not know how to use a computer. So that was a deficit we recognized. And guess what? We also found a deficit in the church. Can you believe it? A deficit in the church? Yes, we found a deficit. What was it? Many pastors realized that their members were in grief. Many pastors found themselves in grief because we were in a building. Many of us, I remember going to the building. I was on the team at our church at that time to be one of the ministers. So we had a rotation going on, and we would rotate. And if you know me, you know I'm a people person. It was very hard to preach to a camera. It was very hard. I've learned to do it now, but then it was very, very hard. And so pastors were grieving, members were grieving. And so pastors all over the world, they're now incorporating mental health ministries and bereavement ministries into their church. Yep, they are. So what we've done at our church to acknowledge mental health awareness, we've just had presence. We've had presence. What I mean by that, just being there in the lobby after church and being available. We've given them some things just to remind them. We've given bookmarks. We've given stress balls. I gave the stress balls out. We gave the stress balls out the very first Sunday in May. If I tell you the saints were eating those things up, what do I mean? Because they were stressed. I say, come get your stress ball so you can squeeze it when you're experiencing stress. They were grabbing those things by the droves. I mean, they grabbed a handful. That tells me that we as a people, we are stressed. So what is mental health? Again, it refers to your overall well-being, your emotional, your physical, your psychological, your social well-being. And your mental health, it affects everything about you. It affects how you feel. Your mental health affects how you think. It affects how you cope, and basically how you relate to other people. Your mental health means it is how you handle stress. Some of us don't handle stress well. That means our mental health, again, needs some attention. Okay? So good health, mental health, it means when you are managing stress in a healthy way, when you are maintaining relationships, right? Have you ever known a person, it may have been you at some point in time, to where you've gone from relationship to relationship and you found something that was off in each relationship? No, I don't like them. I don't like her. I don't like him. Just something off. And then you go to this next group of people, and then you go to this next group of people. Well, all three of these groups cannot be off. Okay, so what's the common denominator in all three of the groups? It is you. So how we deal with people socially. There's some people who will say, I don't get along with people. Now, some women used to say that. I hear some women still say that I don't like women, but you over the women's ministry. How you gonna not like women? Or people will say, I don't like people, but you have a people business. That means there's something going on with the mental health, okay? The mental health. So we want you to take time to pay attention to that. Now, mental illness is not the same, but they're connected. So mental illness, it refers to a condition that is going to be diagnosable by a doctor. Okay, this is where we get bipolarism, we get depression, major depressive disorder, we get schizophrenia, PTSD. All of those fall under what we call mental illness. Okay, mental illness. So if you don't take care of your mental health, it can again develop into a mental illness. So mental health, we all have it. We all have it. Again, but mental illness is when some people experience some conditions that they need assistance with. So we're going to talk about how grief and how mental health, how they connect. Okay, they're different, but how they connect. So in the handout, if you have it, you can follow along with me. It talks about grief and mental health. They are absolutely deeply connected. They are deeply connected in a way that is most often misunderstood by people. Okay, many people think that grief only happens after the death of a loved one. We know that not to be true, right? That is not true. Grief is not only about when a person dies, okay? But grief can emerge in different ways about different losses, like non-death losses, like you go through a divorce. Those of you who know my story, it was a divorce that woke me up and said, okay, you are not processing and dealing with your grief. We go through divorce, we go through job loss, you go through betrayal. Has anybody ever experienced betrayal? I know I have, right? And you go through grief about that. Of course, when you lose relationships, women who are dealing with infertility, okay, chronic illness, when you move and relocate to another place, even if it's necessary, you are going to experience grief. When you have some type of financial stress going on, listen to this one, can cause you grief. Ministry burnout. For those of you who are in ministry, you can experience grief, broken relationships, loss of identity, and definitely change in roles. Change in roles. So grief, again, is experienced by any kind of loss. It's not just a death loss. It is not just a death loss. And grief is not simply, again, an emotional experience. Grief is a whole body experience. Can somebody put that in the chat for me? And I'm having a hot flash, a whole body experience. Had to turn my fan on. Grief. Can y'all still hear me well? Let me know. Put it in the chat if you can still hear me well. Otherwise, I'll turn my fan off. But let me know if you can hear me. Yes or no? Can you hear me clearly without interruption? Yes or no? So grief. Grief is not simply an emotional experience. It's a whole body experience. Okay, your whole body is impacted. Your mind, your spirit, everything. Okay, so when grief is not acknowledged, when grief is not acknowledged, when it's not processed, or when it's not supported properly, guess what? It affects everything. It can affect your mental health in significant ways, and it can lead to anxiety. It can lead to depression, emotional exhaustion. It can lead to anger. Thank you, Patricia. It can lead to anger, isolation, sleep disturbances, all of this. I was speaking to one of my church members this morning, and her mom, a mama, we called a mama at our church. She's one of the oldest members at our church, and it was a year ago this past week that she made her transition to go be with the Lord. And her daughter was sharing with me. She said, man, if I tell you that grief hit me on that 1 year, that 1 year anniversary, I say, yeah, grief is a whole body experience. So we must understand the relationship between grief and mental health, because it will help us realize if we have unresolved grief. If you have unresolved grief, because what that can do, it can quietly impact you. It can quietly impact your daily functioning, your relationships, and even your decision making. Even your decision making. Okay, thanks, Tonya. You can hear me. So, for those who are here for the very first time, I always want to give you a little bit of foundation, and it's a repeat for those of you who have been here before, just kind of revisiting and practicing to make sure that you know what it is. What is grief? Again, it's a natural, emotional, psychological, physical, and spiritual experience. It's all of that. Okay, some people think they don't grieve, and that's just because they don't know. They don't know what grief is. It's a natural response and it happens on the inside of you. And grief is not about weakness. It's about, again, allowing yourself to feel so that you can heal. You also need to know that you don't get over grief. You don't ever get over grief, but you adjust to it. You adjust to it. So what is supposed to be ending as you go through your grief journey is the pain of it. That's what's supposed to be subsiding. If the pain doesn't subside over a period of time, that means you have not done your work to heal. Let me give you a good example again, just with me personally. um Mother's Day, my first lady did the message on Mother's Day, and just before she started giving the word of the Lord, she just acknowledged all mothers, of course, and then she said a lot of mothers are not, or women are not happy today. They may be sad because their children have died, and so she wanted to acknowledge, mothers who children have died. And I said, oh, okay. I sat on my seat. I said, okay, that's me. My baby died too. I said, okay. And then she said, I also want to acknowledge women whose mother have died. And when she said that, grief came up and I started tearing up. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening here? My mother has been deceased since 2006. 2006. But for this reason, for whatever reason, this year, grief started welling up. Grief started welling up. And then last Sunday, I spoke at a guest church and it came up about my daddy. Grief came up about my daddy. And I was preaching and somehow I was talking about missing my father's singing this hymn called I Will Trust in the Lord. I grew up Baptist and he sung this hymn every Sunday morning. Y'all, I got so tired of that. I'm like, Daddy, we were the first ones because he was the chairman of the deacon board and he was the brother of the pastor. So that meant that we were a church early before anybody got there, and we were always the last one to leave. And he would sing this song during devotion every Sunday. I said, Daddy, we come home. I said, Daddy, do you know any other songs? Why you got to sing I Trust in the Lord every Sunday morning? He said, you just keep living. That's my song. That's my testimony. Well, I turned a few corners and now I understand what he meant. I will trust in the Lord. I realized just in my late years here as an adult, I thought I was trusting in God. I wasn't. I was trusting in my own ability to make things happen. Just like some of y'all, you think you're trusting in God. You're not. You're not. You're trusting in yourself. But back to this message as I was preaching, and once I finished, I sat down and the musicians started playing, I will trust in the Lord. And the congregation started singing it. All of a sudden, tears just started rolling down my face. And I did the ugly cry. Like my daddy just died. He died in 2012, I believe. 2010. He died in 2010. But just last Sunday, I was crying. Grief just comes up like that. So that's the example I give you to let you know that grief never ends, but the pain of it should end. Okay? So that's what grief is, and it looks different for every person. Again, some people cry openly, some people don't. Some people become withdrawn. Some people, they're emotionally numb. But all of us, again, experience grief. Some of you are experiencing what we call complicated and hidden grief. What is that? Some of you experience complicated grief, which occurs when this intense grief symptoms, it persists for an extended period of time. When I was talking to Tatiana Jefferson's sister, her name is Ashley, and I said, hey, I want to interview you. And she said, absolutely. So be looking for that. I'm going to interview her. But it's been 7 years since it happened. 7 years since her sister was killed, and they're just now getting ready to deal with the civil case. The criminal case has finished. The policeman is in jail for only 11 years. Let me move on with that. but now they're dealing with the civil case. So that's 7 years later. The world has moved on. People have forgotten about what has happened, but she and her immediate family are having to deal with that. That's complicated grief. And most people don't realize that. Some of you have to deal with cases. You know, if the death was because of a murder or something like that, you have to deal with the justice system. And that can definitely put you in complicated grief. Now, some of you are dealing with what we call disenfranchised grief. This is a grief that's not recognized by the public. You know, they don't say, oh, that's not a loss. That's disenfranchised grief. Every loss, if it's real to you, again, it's a loss. Okay? So we've got the death loss again. When we have the death of a loved one, some of you will experience confusion. We experience emotional fatigue, spiritual questioning, loneliness. All of these things are what we experience when we have a death loss, as well as, listen to this, a non-death loss. So what is a non-death loss? Again, that has to deal with when it's something other than a death loss. A non-death loss is often hidden. It's often minimized because most people think it's not important. Okay? It's overlooked, but yet it impacts your mental health. Kind of like divorce, right? Kind of like the divorce. Most of us that are a part of the Black community or any people of color, again, we were not taught to express. We were taught to suppress. And so that's why it's hard for you. I think it was Victorious. Somebody said, I'm having to learn how to take care of myself because we were taught to suppress and to hold things in. So that is true. So when it comes to a non-death loss, it could be a miscarriage for women who are trying to have children and they have miscarriage after miscarriage. You go through grief. When my baby died, she was born prematurely. She was born at 5 months and she lived 2 hours and 12 minutes. And my employer at the time, they thought I was not going to take maternity leave because she died. What? Yes, I'm taking maternity leave. And at that time, I was working at the mortuary college. So they know about death and dying, but back then, grief was not as well, it was not accepted, even among people who were in the death care industry. So non-death losses are just as important when you have a career change. Here's a big one for some of y'all that are in ministry. When you have ministry wounds. Has anybody ever had a wound that took place in ministry at where you're serving or someone in ministry mishandled you or violated you and it caused a wound? Okay, so many of you are suffering silently because society doesn't always validate this non-death loss. It doesn't validate that, okay? So let's talk a little bit about the emotional impact of grief. What's the emotional impact of grief? We know that grief affects us emotionally in powerful ways. Whether you believe you're an emotional person or not, grief impacts all of us in powerful ways. People are experiencing grief. Again, they struggle with sadness. You struggle with mood swings, irritability, these kinds of things, hopelessness and fear. You have a tough time concentrating. Why is this happening? Because your brain is processing what has happened to you. Oftentimes, many people will ask you, after you experience a loss, especially of death loss, people will ask you, how you doing? I want to ask you guys that question. How does it make you feel when people ask you that? When people ask you, how you doing since the death loss? And as you put your comments in the section, I have some people who become very angry when people ask them that. What do you mean how I'm doing? My child died. My mother died. My husband died. Why do you have to ask me how am I doing? Okay. Rarely, I have never heard, and that's a strong word to use, never, but I really have never heard anybody ask someone, how is your mind handling what your heart is going through? Nobody asks you that when it comes to a loss. How is your mind handling what your heart is going through? That is what we should be asking people when it comes to grief versus how are you doing? versus how are you doing. So your brain is processing, and it's a form of stress and emotional trauma. It can definitely impact your memory, your focus, your emotional regulation. You know, people may often call you moody because you can be sad most of the time, if not all of the time. And every now and then you'll laugh and then you're back sad. That's because the grief is impacting you. Okay. So when you have prolonged periods of this without support that you need, I wanted to repeat that because some of us think we don't need support in grief. Some of us do, if not all of us. Okay. So we try to deal with grief alone. Lois says, I'm honest. You're sad, taking it day by day. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your honesty, Lois. Tonya says, sometimes it makes me angry. Yes, when people will say those kinds of things. So yes, Lois and Tonya, thank you so much for your honesty and thank you for sharing. And Lois, you definitely have to be true to yourself because some people are not honest in their grief because the other people can't handle it. So you're protecting other people's feelings. Meanwhile, you're suffering. That's right, Jimmy. How is your heart handling what your mind is going through? So how is it handling both of them? Because it's a short distance between your mind and your heart, but it's a long distance as it relates to processing. Okay, your mind can logically know my loved one is deceased, but your heart hadn't grappled with that just yet. It hadn't grappled. I'm trying to figure out. I'm expecting my loved one to still come back. Okay. So what are some common signs? So what are some common signs that grief is affecting your mental health? Okay. Common signs that grief may be impacting your mental health is that there's several emotional, mental, and physical signs. Okay. Behavioral signs that grief may be impacting you. So this is what a lot of you don't know, especially when we're on social media. And when I'm listening to people as they're talking on their lives, I'm like, they fighting this alone. None of us were meant to deal with our grief alone. You should never have to go through it alone. It doesn't mean you don't have to be married to do so. I'm not married, but I'm a part of a community, a part of people. I have a family, people who are supportive. Okay. So what are some signs that your grief may need some attention? And then you should seek some support. Is where you have persistent sadness or emotional numbness, where it's constant. My question I want to ask of you is, since your death loss, have you laughed about anything? You can put yes or no in the comment section. If you've laughed, I mean anything. If you smiled about anything since your loved one has passed. If you've done that, that's an indicator of what we call life after loss. That's the indicator of life. That means that you will laugh again. You may not feel like laughing all of the time, but you will laugh. And guess what? You don't have to feel guilty for laughing. Many people feel that. They feel guilty. Some people want to hold on to the pain of grief because it feels like, thank you, Sonia, Lois. Yes, that means that that's a key indicator that you are going to process through this. You're not depressed, so depressed that you're not able to laugh or smile. Okay, so that's a good sign. But if it's persistent sadness or emotional numbness, another sign is you have difficulty sleeping or excessive sleeping. The number one sign of depression in grief, not major depressive disorder like the mental illness, but depression in its mildest form is associated with grief. Sleeping, excessive sleeping is a sign. Okay, there's some depression there. Thank you, Tonya. Yeah. So another sign that grief is affecting your mental health is anxiety, panic attacks, or excessive worry. I was sitting with a client about a few weeks ago talking about the death of their loved one who happened to be their child. And yes, the father began to have a panic attack right in front of us. Started sweating profusely. Said, I don't feel well. What's going on? His body was responding. Okay. So what's some other signs that grief is impacting your mental health? Isolation from your family, from your friends, from your community. I know in the beginning, a lot of times you want to be by yourself, and that is okay. It really is. There are some moments when you do need alone time to where you don't have to be around other people all the time. But when it's a continuous isolation, that's not good. That's unhealthy. Okay. Loss of motivation, or loss in interest of activities. You are irritable. You're angry. You're an angry bird. That's what I call angry birds. You're an angry bird all the time. You have emotional outbursts. Today, while I was present at our table at our church, and one lady came, and she's an older lady, and I'm so glad she came, and she shared her story. She said, I do need to talk to you. I realized that I'm angry about some things, and her husband had passed years ago. But when he passed, their child was only 3 months old. So she had to pour herself and throw herself into being a mother that she never dealt with her grief. And it turned to anger. And anger unaddressed turns to bitterness. Okay? So if you're bitter, if you're angry, that's a sign that it's affecting your mental health. Where you have difficulty concentrating or even remembering things, it's impacting your health. And that's normal in the grief sector. When you're in grief, because it physically impacts your brain. To your brain here is where our logic is processed. And that part of our brain is not functioning up to par. Same thing with our emotions. So it's hard for you to remember things. It's hard to concentrate. Changes in your appetite. Tonya says, I deal with excessive stress and anxiety and worry. We have to work on that, Tonya. We do. Because that keeps your body in survival mode when we're in constant stress. So when I mentioned earlier at the top of our session that it's important for you to build up your immune system, you want to build it up because you're in grief, okay? And definitely because of what's happening in our world. But when we're filled with stress and anxiety, that compromises our immune system. And it leaves us susceptible to colds and things like that. So we definitely, stress is a part of our life, unfortunately. And there can be positive stress and negative stress. But we have to learn how to manage it. We have to learn how to manage that. Okay? So what's some other signs that, that grief is affecting your mental health, where you have feelings of guilt, shame, or hopelessness? Where you have physical symptoms like headaches and fatigue and body pain, and increased use of unhealthy coping mechanisms. I'm not going to ask you to put your unhealthy coping mechanisms. I don't want you to put them on there, but you know what they are. What is unhealthy for you? Again, we want to replace it with something healthy. Okay. Sonia says, I feel like I'm on an emotional roller coaster. Absolutely. You are. That's a great description. It is. When you're in grief, you go up and you go down like a roller coaster. But the thing to know about a roller coaster is that it's still going forward, which is, unless it's, I forgot, I think it's called the Freeze at Six Flags up here. Over Texas, there's a ride. That's the only ride that I know, roller coaster, that it takes you backwards versus going forwards. But you are on an emotional roller coaster. And the good thing to know, Sonia, about that is that when you're on the dip, the down part, that doesn't mean that you're not processing well. The down part is a part of the healing process, just like it is when you go up. Okay? You go up, down, up, down, up, down. It's an emotional roller coaster. So when we talk about grief and your body, grief not only affects your emotions. I want you guys to pay attention to how you feel. Okay? How do you feel? Do you have any aches? What joints? Are your joints sore? Pay attention to your body and what you feel. Because of course, you'll be exhausted. You feel exhaustion. Some people have headaches. One of the primary problems we have are digestive issues. Okay? Pay attention to your digestive issues. Weakened immune system, tightness in the chest, increase in blood pressure is very, very common. Some of you may need to monitor your blood pressure to make sure that you're checking in to see what's going on. What am I thinking about to cause my blood pressure to increase, and definitely changes in energy. So my church member that I told you earlier this morning, where her mom, she just came to the 1-year anniversary last week. She said, I got sick because I told her that grief weakens the immune system. and it affects my body. She said, oh my God, that's what was going on. She got sick last week. Yes, that's what grief can certainly do. The body often carries what the heart struggles to process. There's a book out there in the clinical world. We call it The Body Keeps Score. So your body knows what you've gone through. Lois says, I have physical symptoms like headaches, arthritis, want to sleep, and fatigue. All of those are grief responses. All of those are grief responses indeed. Okay? So your body is definitely responding to this chronic stress that you're in. This is why grief support is needed, because it's going to address, many people don't even understand the power of what we're doing today. I'm here sharing information, even though we're not in person together. I'm sharing information, and many of you are connecting with you. Like, oh my God, that's me. Oh, that is real. I feel that. Okay, you're coming into a greater understanding. Most people don't understand the importance of talk therapy. When you go to therapy, you're talking, but it's not just talking. But talking is very powerful. It's a releasing for you, allowing you to get it out. Okay? Tonya says she's dealing with the nervous stomach pains. And did you know that there are emotions associated with our organs? Yeah. Anxiety is associated with our digestive tract. That's why we get that nervousness in our stomach. I remember Barry sharing about a family that they had, I think it was last year. It was where the husband died, but the wife ended up being in the hospital, so they couldn't have his funeral for about 2 months. Tonya, you'll probably remember, didn't have his funeral for 2 months because they wanted mama to be there. And on the day of the funeral, they said she threw up several times. When they rolled her into the church, she started regurgitating. That's because anxiety was in her digestive tract. It's a physical response. Okay? So what's the importance? What's the importance of what we call, again, in healthy grieving? Because you're grieving, but is it healthy? Is it healthy? Okay, healthy grieving doesn't mean that the pain disappears quickly. No, healthy grieving means you're allowing yourself to acknowledge the emotions honestly. Okay, healthy grieving means that you're seeking support. Healthy grieving means that you're processing the loss and you are adapting to life after the loss over time. That's what healthy grieving looks like. Okay, it's important for us to know that healing doesn't mean that you're forgetting them. When you start healing and having less pain, that means that you're learning how to carry that memory. You're learning how to carry the pain and the lessons in a healthier way. So the example I gave you earlier, teared up when on Mother's Day about mother and my daughter, teared up. That was fine. That was healthy. It didn't last long. And even just last Sunday, remember my daddy listening to a song that triggered a memory. Again, I had tears to flow, but it was still healthy. There was no pain associated with those tears. It was no pain associated with it. I was just missing it. Tonya, yeah, you remember that. Yeah, absolutely. So we have to find healthy ways, okay? Grieving people need safe places. You need a safe place where you feel seen, where you feel heard, where you feel validated and supported without judgment. That is so important. You need a safe space to where you can express and just be. Okay? Safe. They won't judge you. They're going to allow you to be whoever you are. When I'm working with people one-on-one and I'm telling them, hey, especially when I'm working with people out of the church, I work with praise leaders, pastors, a fivefold ministry gifts, worship leaders. I say, hey, I'm not talking to pastor. I'm talking to you, the man, you, the woman. Okay? So what are some healthy coping strategies, since I've shared that we need to have some healthy ones, okay, to help you navigate your grief and your mental health challenges? Attend grief support of some kind, like you're doing today. Some of you can attend a grief group in person. Find it. It's in your area. You can Google it. For those who are faith-based, there's a grief group that is, and you can Google it too. It's in churches. Oh my gosh, I have to put the name of it later, but you can Google it. It's in churches, and they have about 11 weeks, and they do virtual and they do in person. Okay, but join grief support of some kind. Some of you need individual counseling to talk about your grief, because whatever is not addressed in your life is going to come to the surface when you have a loss. So if you had some other issues that you were having problems with, such as abandonment, rejection, guess what? All of that other stuff is going to come up too. It's going to come up. So what else can you do? You can journal. Journaling is so powerful. It's so therapeutic because it's a way for you to release. You're journaling for your eyes only. Now, I know some of you may not feel comfortable in journaling because somebody probably violated you. I've heard some people say that, well, someone read my journal and I don't feel like writing because you don't live alone. Okay? Even though I live alone, I have a box full of journals, and I have been going through preparing for end of life. Excuse me, I'm not dying. No, I'm just preparing for whenever that day comes. When I'm 90, 100 years old, everything will be in order. Then my family won't have to worry about it. So I have a box of journals, and I told my executor, and I put it in my trust. I said, the moment that you hear about my death, before you do any business, come get this box of journals and destroy it. And I trust he's going to do it. He's my cousin. I trust he'll do it. So that's what I did. If they read them, too bad. It's on them. I'm gone. I'm with the Lord. They can't do nothing to me. If they read what I said about them, I don't care. I'm gone. Okay? But if that is you and you don't feel safe to write and leave it in your journal, go ahead and write it out and then rip it out and tear it up. Okay? So you can journal. You can develop a routine such as resting, hydration, and your nutrition. You definitely want to set up healthy boundaries for yourself. You want to set up healthy boundaries for yourself. And then what else can you do to help you through the process? You can avoid suppressing your emotions. And some of us, lastly, need to seek medical support. For those of you who are new in your grief and you have not gone to see your doctor to get your blood work done, just to have a physical, that's your homework. Okay, you want to go get your blood work done because it'll let you know what's deficit in your body. So get blood work, go get a physical from your PCP so they can kind of let you know what's going on, all right? So as we come to a close, I have homework for you. Homework. What's some questions I want you to think about and I want you to reflect on? One thing, and can you write these in the chat? Jimmy, you were scribing earlier. Here's a question I want you to reflect on. What losses have impacted your mental and emotional health? What losses have impacted your mental and your emotional health? This is what I want you to think about. Okay? What losses, put that in the chat for me, somebody, have impacted your... So what's the purpose of reflecting on this? Because I need you to check and see if you dealt with previous losses in your life. Did you deal with, when you were younger and your parent died, or your parent was absent? They didn't die, but they chose not to be in your life. Have you dealt with that? I'm working with a lot of adults right now who are struggling because father and or mother, they weren't deceased when they were young, meaning the child, but they didn't raise them. Many of them were raised by grandparents, aunts, uncles, other friends, foster system. Guess what? You're in grief. Yeah. So if you haven't processed that loss, be it a death loss or a non-death loss, guess what? It's time to deal with that. Number two, second question I want you to put in the chat, Jimmy, is how has grief affected your thoughts, emotions, or behavior? How has grief affected your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors? I really want you to sit in it and look, because some of us don't understand our behaviors. It's screaming, I'm in grief, I'm in pain, and I need help. You need to be aware of that, and not only aware of that, then do something about it. Okay? How has grief affected your thoughts, emotions, and your behavior? Adrian says, no, I have not. I feel like a ball of confusion and on a hamster wheel. Yes, that is true. Confusion is a common grief response, Adrian. It is. Confusion, disoriented, on the hamster wheel, running but going nowhere. Absolutely, that's a common grief response. And that's a key indicator. Okay, I need to sit down and deal with this. That's the second question. Third question I want you to reflect on is, what healthy coping strategies have helped you most? What healthy coping strategies have helped you most? Once you identify that, rinse and repeat, keep doing it. What healthy coping strategies have helped you most? Rinse and repeat. You have to find what works for you. Okay? And a lot of times you won't find what works for you until you try something. You go here, you try this, and no, I don't like that. I'm not going to do that anymore. Okay, we know now not to do that. But you got to find what works for you. Yeah, you got to find what works for you. So I'll stop there with those questions. Thanks, Jimmy, for putting those in the chat. Okay, so know that grief is not a sign of weakness. It's not. It's just evidence that something meaningful mattered to you deeply. That's what that is, okay? So whether loss involves a death or a non-death loss, grief deserves compassion. It deserves attention, and your grief deserves support, okay? So when we have mental health challenges that's connected to our grief, again, that should never be ignored. Never minimize that. Know that healing is certainly possible when we allow ourselves to grieve honestly. Kind of like you guys have been sharing on here honestly. You've been sharing where you are. You got to be able to share it honestly, then process our emotions, and receive support along the way. I made a post about a couple of weeks ago for the people of faith. I said, prayer is powerful, and it is. The Bible says men ought to always pray and not faint. Prayer is powerful, but so is processing. Some of you just need to simply process what happened to you. Process the loss, whatever it is. Okay? You got to process it. So while grief again may change the person, it doesn't mean that hope is lost. Grief definitely changes you. Now, how it changes you, that's up to you. Grief is definitely a teacher. It's a teacher, and it can teach us some powerful lessons. But are you willing to learn the lesson? Okay? So with support, awareness, and your community, your family, your faith community, your friends, and your healthy coping tools, again, you can continue, here's the word, to move forward one step at a time. One step. And if it's a death loss that you're experiencing, the best way that you can honor their memory and their life and legacy is for you to live well. When I say live well, not materialistically, living well by doing things to take care of yourself that you should have been doing way before you experienced this death loss. Okay? So thank you so much for your time. Remember, Mental Health Awareness Month is this month, but mental health awareness is not just one month. It's every day of your life. And make sure you take care of your mental health and allow yourself to grieve. Until next time, we'll see y'all next month. I'm going to turn it back over to our wonderful producer, Cedric.
All right, Dr. Cunningham, thank you so much. I have to step in because Mr. Franklin, as always, there's always something going on at a life celebration by Franklin. So they end up having to step out a little early so they can go and take care of some more families like we always do. But on behalf of the entire staff, of course, Barry Marie Franklin and the entire staff at the Life Celebration by Franklin, want to say thank you for tuning in to this month's session. Remember to please send this out to anyone that you know that this will be of benefit to. And you can also follow us on Facebook, and you can also follow us on YouTube. And we'll see you next month. Thank you.